Gregory, you've reached a point in your career now. You've decided to call it a day. Can you tell us the reason behind the decision, and how do you see your career has played out?
Well, it's interesting that you introduced me as international umpire. Is no former. Um, Having retired officially on September 30th, just a couple of days ago. Um, so, a conversation I've been having with those who were close to me, my children, etc., for the last year. And following the World Cup here in West Indies, I just thought that the time has come for me to seriously sit and have a look at where I am based on my age, etc., and whether or not the time has come to give an opportunity to somebody who's younger and may have an opportunity to excel beyond where I have been. Um, I'm very happy with what I was able to achieve, having started a journey that I didn't plan. Umpiring was never on my radar. And when I do give that story, people are surprised. But umpiring was never on my radar. And to have reached the level of crossing all formats on the field, ODIs, T20s, Test match cricket, I think that in itself is a really great achievement for someone who didn't set out to umpire initially. So I've had an interesting and enjoyable career, and I think the time has come for me to utilize all of my experiences and the opportunities that have been given and invested in me now to invest in others so that they too would have an opportunity to reach their zenith wherever that may be for them.
You said you didn't plan to umpire. So, what got you into it, and then what made you persist with it? And why did you think you ever would do it?
Well, interestingly enough, a friend of mine who was interested in umpiring reached out to me. I had just finished playing, and he wanted to do the course and asked me if I would come along and do the course. And I said to him I had no interest. He continued to pursue me with vigor, and I decided eventually, look, there's no harm in learning the rules, the laws of the game. So I decided to take the course. Um, I think, interestingly enough, though, what his job was in the process was just to get me to do the course because he dropped out of the course midway, and I continued. At the end of the course, I hadn't decided that I wanted to umpire, but the late Lloyd Ben, who was one of the trainers on that course, spoke to me and suggested that it's something that he thinks that I probably should consider. And that I did. So I went out on the field the start of the season in 2005 and enjoyed the first game and continued for the rest of the season. Interestingly enough, at the end of the season, there was an award ceremony. And I was the most surprised person to realize that I was nominated as one of the three umpires at the time we started in second division. I was one of the three umpires nominated for the Umpire of the Year in second division. I didn't win that award, but that was enough to catapult me the following season to do intermediate cricket. And again, went about it with the same level of professionalism that I take to everything else that I'm doing. And at the end of that year, the award ceremony, I was nominated for Umpire of the Year in the intermediate division. I didn't win that award either. The following year, I would have done first division, having completed my regional exams, and was nominated for Umpire of the Year for the first division. So in each division, I was nominated for Umpire of the Year. But this time, like the other times, I didn't win the award either. But that was enough for me to keep going. Was they thought that people recognized that what I was doing well, and my career quickly took off thereafter.
But stretch of imagination is easy. As a matter of fact, it's difficult. Um, how difficult is it? And can you talk us through a day in the life of an umpire, probably for a ODI, which is the longest day?
ODI indeed is a long day, and I remember sitting in the airport coming back from one of my trips, and there was a lady there who is a very strong supporter of West Indies cricket. And we got into a conversation, and she talked about umpiring. She thought it was a really easy task. She said, well, you know, you all go there at 9:30 in the morning and you just say out and not out, and you by 5 o'clock you're finished. And I said to her, let's put that into perspective. I'm not even going to go a couple of days out. I said, preparation starts before we get to that day. I said, one has to make sure that they're properly hydrated. You make sure you try to get in the right mental space. For me, leading up to my games, I always do quite a bit of walking. It's part of my routine. I would do at least 10, 12 Ks a day, Monday to Friday. And recently I've been pushing myself doing 15 and 17. But you want to make sure that you're physically in a good space, because that obviously affects your mental. So you start with that. You start with your hydration. You start with making sure that your uniforms and everything are in place. Your kit is ready. But then I said to her, if a game is starting at 9:30, we're supposed to be at the ground for 7:30. And let's roll that back. Before you get to the ground for 7:30, if you're staying at a hotel where the drive is half an hour, that means leaving the hotel at 7. But then we go back from there, because you still have to get up, you shower, you have your breakfast and so on. So typically your day may start at 5:30 for a game that begins at 9:30. And she paused. She was like, why didn't even think of all of that? I said, so when you tune in at 9:30 for the first ball, my day has long started. And I said, when the last ball is bowled, whether West Indies has won and you're happy, or lost and you're upset, we still have to stay at the ground for a little bit, because we have debriefs to talk about the game. If there are any things that have happened in the game that we have to do, code of conduct, there are reports to write. I said, so it's not as easy as the game finishes at 5 and we walk away. Sometimes we are leaving the ground an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours after the game. So it is indeed a very long day.
Greg, you mentioned the honor, really, because it's an honor to do the women's final at Lord's. Lord's is the home of cricket. It's the most majestic place you could ever be in terms of the game. What was it like that day?
Well, Philip, when I started doing international cricket, my dream was to umpire at Lord's. If someone would have told me that the opportunity would have come, and it would have come in the form of ICC event finals, I would have taken that hands down. There's a surreal feeling when you enter Lord's. You hear about the long room, and to walk through the long room, to see the folks at Lord's, the way they treat you as an official. Everybody stands when your name is announced and so on. It's just a completely different experience. And the standards that are held at Lord's, the etiquette required when you are there, even in eating and so on, is something completely different to any other venue that I've visited. Lord's is truly the home of cricket.
And you've done cricket all over the world, as you said. 200 T20s, 50 plus ODIs. The list stretches quite long. But Kensington Oval, it's home, and it must be special.
Kensington will always be home. And I have some favorite grounds around the world, but as I tell people all the time, there's nothing like home. And that may sound like a statement that is rehearsed, heard all over, but there is a specific feel about being at home. I mean, the challenge of being home and officiating at home is always a little bit more difficult. Fans are less forgiving, and I mean, if you know what Scripture says is only in his hometown a prophet without honor. So you know that in your hometown that you will get more pressure than anywhere else that you go. You're judged a lot more harshly. But despite that, there's just this special feeling of knowing that you're in a place that you know, a place that you grew up around, a place that you've officiated cricket, a place where you know you're surrounded by people that you may not know all of them personally, but you know quite a bit of them. A lot of them know you. And people that you interact with are sitting in the stand. So you're surrounded by people that you know, people who know you. And that makes a huge difference.
And what's the toughest part of umpiring? And what for you has been the most enjoyable part of umpiring?
That's an interesting question. The toughest part of umpiring could be any given aspect on any given day.
Okay.
Because sometimes conditions are very challenging, and oftentimes I would watch and I listen to commentators and they're talking about what's happening with the pitch, how it's behaving, and how difficult it is for batsmen. But imagine if it is difficult for batsmen, how difficult it is for an umpire. Um, Umpires are asked to make judgment on things that have not actually happened. It's the only sport. Every other sport, referees and so on actually give decisions based on things that actually happen. But we are called to, in the case of LBWs, we're supposed to make a decision on something that didn't actually happen. So we have to use our judgment and in our minds craft out a trajectory of a ball and whether it would have done X or Y. Every other sport is done on impact. If you think about what happens in basketball, football, the referee blows the whistle when something's actually happened. So that is one of the challenges. Reading conditions, obviously, of the pitch, the way a pitch behaves. You may have one that is spinning a lot. You have one the balls are keeping low. You have some where you're getting variable bounce. So there are a number of things that can, as I said, present as a challenge on a particular day and in a particular situation. So being out there with world-class performers, knowing that at the end of the day that you are making decisions that impact a game that means so much to so many people and obviously is important to them. And when you're out there in challenging conditions, etc., and you're able to add value by some of the decisions that you've made, and you have those players coming up to you and they are congratulating you on decisions that you made or applauding you for decisions that you've made. There's a sense of pride that comes with knowing that you have impacted the game positively. Outside of that, it's the friendships that you've built, the lasting friendships that would have built over the years, wherever I've gone, whether it's Scotland, England, Australia, New Zealand. Those are some of the benefits and some of the things that you enjoy most, the memories that you take away from this sport that you've been around for over a decade.
And I want to ask you a question that it's going to be probably strange, but it's one that people probably wonder about. So you've done a lot of T20s, and T20s happen fast. The ball can come back at you as an umpire. You're pretty close. Have you ever had one of those experiences? Because I know Chris Gayle and Pollard have very big bats. Have you ever had a quote-unquote near miss?
I've actually gone beyond even a near miss. I've actually remembered. I remember being struck on the inside of my thigh in Bangladesh, which was a completely different story. But yeah, when you're officiating T20 is completely different. And as a matter of fact, I started using boxes in T20s for that very reason. Chris Gayle hits the ball hard, Pollard hits the ball hard, but it's people like Darren Sammy with those bat swings, because his bat swing, the ball could come back and it could come back at you from a shot that he might have shaped up to hit somewhere else. So there are some players like that were more concerning than the hard hitting batters like Chris and the Pollards and so on. When they shape it, the ball usually goes where they shape to go. But people like Darren, who plays it late and with a real quick bat swing, those to me were a little more difficult, and I used to be a lot more alert for persons like those.
And umpiring, right? For example, you're in Cape Town doing South Africa versus Pakistan, and Australia are playing England in the Ashes. Do you watch?
Well, that depends. When you are in a series like that, if you have off days, you might tend to look at some of the game, but I try hard not to get totally engrossed, because you still need to have some time where you switch off, so that you can recover and be mentally in a good space to start again. You don't want to consume yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with the cricket. And as a matter of fact, that extends to sometimes coming to watch cricket, because sometimes you come to watch a game, you just want to take in sometimes you spend more of your time looking at umpires, but you want to just take in the cricket. and persons might recognize you, and then they want to engage you on a whole lot of cricket conversation, which you don't mind sometimes, but sometimes when you come away from being in the middle, you just want to take it in and be a spectator.
How does an umpire practice? Because you spoke about walking 15 Ks, you talk about, obviously, you probably get vision tests and heart rate monitors and stuff like that, but how does the umpire practice his craft and build towards doing international cricket?
Now, apart from the other stuff that you identify, which I believe is a personal thing, whether or not organization you're working for sees that as being part of what they need to do, I think it's important for umpires to make sure that their eyes and ears and so on are tested annually for their own benefit. Outside of that, the best practice for an umpire is to be in the middle. And so once I was at home, I would often be still doing local cricket because that's the way you practice. And you will notice that if you go to an international series, so you're in an international series, so you're not able to do local cricket, you will see that we will come down to the nets when teams are practicing, and we'll go stand in the nets because you're trying to make sure that you keep yourself active as if you're in the game. So you're in the nets, you're looking for bowler traits, you're building relationships as well. But what you're doing is making sure that you keep your routine going. You're checking the front foot, you're looking for where the ball is pitching, you're looking at the bounce of the ball, you're looking at batsmen's traits as well in those games. You're looking for bowlers if they're tight on the line, whether they run in protected area, so that when you get into a game, you've come with an awareness when that particular bowler or that batter is batting. So those are a little cues that help you as well. And as I said, the only way to practice is to make sure that you're out there in the middle as much as possible.
And do you hear the crowd?
You cannot hear the crowd, and it's interesting that you've asked that coming out of CPL, out of Guyana just now. I remember my colleague Chris Taylor and myself were standing at the boundary edge, waiting to walk onto the field for the start of the final, and the crowd just started going. And even though we were standing next to each other, we couldn't hear each other. And I said to him, "Good luck out there with those edges." Because you hear the crowd is so loud, and they've been going all along. You just have to try as much as you can to shut out the crowd while you're standing at your bowler's end, and try to zero in as much as you can. But the noise will always be there, and you've just got to find a way of trying to shut that when you are focusing on what's happening at your end.
And where was the noisiest crowd that you had that you really had to zero in? Probably India?
India was bad. I think I've had some really noisy crowds in South Africa with the band playing right through. So there was no letting up. The band was just going all day throughout that game. Apart from that, Queen's Park Oval, Trinidad, and Guyana. Those are the really noisy ones.
I know that you have picked bails for the final time. Like, what do you plan to do from an umpiring perspective or from a cricketing perspective?
Well, I picked bails, using your term, from international cricket. I've committed to Cricket West Indies to continue for a few months with their senior panel. And I have been for the last 12 months doing some work for Cricket West Indies with the junior panel umpires, doing some umpire coaching, assessment, mentoring. Junior panel umpire during the junior tournaments, under 15, under 17 women's cricket. And that I intend to continue for the next few months. And there are obviously a couple other things on the cards which I'm not going to venture into at this point.
I know people don't like to rate themselves or, cover themselves in glory or anything like that. That's not what I'm asking here. But how would you say is your legacy? Like, your contribution, obviously, to cricket, your involvement in cricket. I mean, a friend like Laura's is no sneeze. And then having done test match and significant amounts of white ball cricket, what do you think you gave to cricket, along with everything that cricket obviously gave to you?
Well, I like to start with the fact that cricket has given quite a bit to me. The opportunity to be involved in sport that an international level as an official, especially where we've got tens of thousands of umpires across the world. And to have had the opportunity that I've had, I think cricket has given me quite a bit. Apart from the women's final, I've stood in the under 19 final, I've stood in qualifiers final, I've been TV umpire in a couple of finals as well, ICC tournaments. And I've done quite a number of regional finals. Last CPL final being my fifth CPL final on field as well. And the precursor to that was the Caribbean T20. I did three of those finals on field. So cricket has given quite a bit to me, and I hope that I would have given back to cricket what was expected of me, as was invested in me by those who saw that I had something to give to the game. So I remain steadfast in my approach, which is maintaining standards. I still stand by the statement that the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. And I would like to believe that part of my legacy is that I was fair, I was firm with all teams, and there was no favoritism in the way that I carried out my work. I was professional always, and in all things that cricket would have been the better for me having served the game.